Hi. Okay, welcome to Excel Format Cells and Worksheets. So before we get started, you should go to Fanshawe Online, download from Fanshawe Online the file EXL05 Festival, and click on EXL05 Festival logo, which is a picture. When you click on it, Fanshawe Online will display the picture. Just right-click on the picture and save, and click on Save File to location, to either desktop or download somewhere where you know you can get to it when you need it later in the lesson. Okay, so just pause this until you have EXL05 Festival open, and we will get started. Okay, so what we're going to be covering off on this week is primarily around formatting. So how you change the appearance of cells, of the contents of a cell. Remember at the start of the course what we talked about was the fact that in a cell you can store contents, which is either a label, a number, a formula, or a function, and also in the cell, separate from the contents, you store the formats. Formats simply change the appearance of the contents of a cell. They do not change the underlying value of the cell. As an example, a number is stored up to 15 decimal points. Most often you will truncate the number of decimal points, either using an accounting function, a currency function, or decrease decimals, and it will only show the number of decimals that you have the formatting to show. However, the underlying cell value stays the same. We also did it with dates. When you format a date, the date internally is stored as the number of days since January the 1st, 1900, but the format will change that date or that number to a date for display, and we're going to actually use that as we work through today. So as you can see, we've got the 10 skills from the textbook. So insert symbols, format cells, conditional formatting, insert and delete, backgrounds and borders. We're going to create our own custom cell style today. It's a little bit of a misnomer when we're customize and save and apply themes. We're going to certainly talk about themes. We're simply going to customize the formats. We're not going to customize the rest of the theme. We're going to show you how to do a watermark and hide grid lines, columns, row headings, and so on, so that when you print it, they won't appear in your printed document. Okay, so click on the Wine Festival worksheet. What this worksheet is covering off is the revenue we're generating from a wine festival. In the left columns, you've got the list of the wineries that are participating and the costs that they're paying to participate. You've got the food vendors and the fee that they're paying to participate, and then you have all your ticket sales. And down at the bottom right-hand corner, you can see your total revenue from the festival is $108,084. All right. Okay, so that's of course is not talking about expenses, so that's not income. That is simply the total net income. Okay, so the first thing we're going to look at here is inserting a symbol. So I want you to click on cell A11, and as you can see in here, the contents is Lone Dove Winery. Click on the formula bar so that you can edit the contents of the cell. Hit the space bar to add a space, and then click on the insert menu, and in the far right click on symbol. So within the insert symbol you have two different versions. You have symbols and special characters. So symbols are based, yours probably doesn't show webdings. Let me show you, yours is probably showing normal text. But as you can see in here, there are even within the data set called normal text, you can see that there are a number of special symbols as you scroll down through the list. So if you're looking for a special character of whatever sort, so French with an accent or what have you, you can find it from in here. You would have to simply click on the symbol and then click insert to have that insert. We're not going to use that. Now there are other specialty font sets. We'll take a look. You can look at webdings. So these are a bunch of graphics that have been created that you can import into your document. There is also wingdings, Wingdings 2, Wingdings 3, etc. So those are available to you. We're also going to look at special. Now what we're going to look at here, however, is special characters. And if you go down the list on special characters, there's a special character for registered. So I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to click insert, and then I'm going to close the dialog box. And so you can see we have the little small r that's shown on my my text. Okay. Now the second part of this is creating your own custom number format. We've already used number formats before. We used number formats when we were formatting in accounting format to put the $ in and put a space at the end for the negative, for the brackets for negative numbers, put commas in and what have you. We looked at the currency format, and then we looked at a number of different date formats. If you take a look at cell C3 and the cell F3, you can see that what is stored there is a number, 41,608. If I go back to the Home tab and I took a look at my number group, I can see that they are currently formatted with the general format. General format simply displays whatever happens to be physically in the cell. However, we can change those to a date. A date format simply takes a number and converts it to a date based on the number of days since January the 1st, 1900. So 41,608 is 41,608 days since January the 1st, 1900. If I click on a basic date format, you can see that that date is actually November the 30th, 2013. Okay, and as this number is exactly the same, I can do the same thing. I can pick a date format, and you can see it has the same format. However, within the date format, you also have the ability to make your own, not just for dates, but you can also create number formats for numbers, percentages, dates, anything that you can format. You can actually create a custom format to do that. Now, we're not going to go into it in real depth. If you want to look into this in more detail, you can click on Help, and within Help, do a search for custom number formats, and it will have Excel has extensive help text that shows you how to create your own number formats, including things like adding color, having negative numbers show a different color or a different format than positive numbers, adding text to the end of a field, and so on. We're simply going to do a very basic one. Now, the first thing you need to do is to bring up the Format Cells dialog box. We've looked at a number of different ways to do that. You can click on the launcher either underneath the font group, the alignment group, or the number group. All three of those will still bring up the Format Cells dialog box. It'll just bring up a different tab within that dialog box, which you can easily change afterwards. So if I click on the number one, it will bring up Format Cells with the number tab assigned, but I can still go to alignment and font and so on and so forth. I can also bring up the dialog box by right-clicking on the cell and going to Format Cells, which will bring up the dialog box. I could also, in the number group, click the drop down on the arrow, go to More Number Formats. However, there is another faster way. If you hold the Control key down and push the number 1, it will bring up the dialog box. So that's a keyboard shortcut to bring up the Format Cells dialog box. Okay, so in there you can see there's your different date formats. So I could change the date format to the full day, the month, the year, and the date. I can just pick up the day and the month. And as you can see, there are a number of different date formats. This includes the time. There's just the month and the day, and so on. However, if you look down further in the list, you'll see something called Custom. We're going to click on Custom. What Custom allows you to do is to actually build your own format. So if I look down the list, I can see that there are some date formats here. So here's D-MMM-YY. Now, just a quick lesson on this. A D will give you a 1-character or 2-character day. So the number 1 will show up as a 1, 10 of course will show up as 10, and so on. DD, so 2 Ds, will give you a 2-character day. So 01 for 1, 02, and so on. MM gives you a 2-character month. M would of course just give you a 1-character month. If you use MMM, it will give you the actual alphanumeric, so DEC for December and JAN for January. If you use 4 M's, it will give you the month spelled out in total, so January, February, and so on. YY will give you a 2-character year. YYYY will give you a 4-character year. Any character that is not part of the formatting, so pound signs, zeros, and so on, will give you will just print as you have them here. So what I want to display in these cells is a dash, and then a 4-character year, and then a dash. To do that, what you have to do is go up here on the type box. Whoops, lost it there. Go back to custom. Go in here where it's got type and simply type in what you want the format to be. So dash, space, a 4-character year, space, and a dash. And you can see in the sample above it shows you exactly what will display in your cell. So if I hit enter here, then you can see that I get dash 2013 dash. Now just as a point of interest here, I'm going to show you how to add color. So on Control plus 1, again I go down to custom, I go into the type group, but if you want to add color to your value, you can put a square bracket, the color, so RED, square bracket, and then dash YYYY dash, hit enter, and you can see that it now displays in red. Alright, so that is skill number 1, to insert a symbol and create a custom number format. Skill number 2 is to format cells using the Format Painter. So again, formats are separate to contents, so sometimes if you do a copy and a paste, it will copy the contents and the formats. If you just want to copy the formats, we're going to use something called the Format Painter. So I want you to click on cell A4. So A4 contains the word wine, and you can see that within that cell it's bolded and the alignment is centered. So I want that same format to appear on the heading fee, food, and again fee. So I could simply click on the cell, click bold, center, and then do it again and do it again. However, what's important when you're trying to make a professional looking document, you want your document to be consistent. So if you've applied a bunch of formats, you want to make sure that you apply exactly those same formats to any similar type headings so that it looks professional. You could redo the formats each time, but if you miss one, it's going to look a little bit disjointed. So what we're going to do is use Format Painter to copy that. So I'm going to click on the cell where the formats exist that I want to copy, and then I'm going to go up to the Format Painter. Now I can click once, and then I can click, and that will allow me to copy the formats to one cell or range of cells. If I want to copy it to more cells than just one or more ranges, then I can double click on the Format Painter and it will stay active until I turn it off, either by hitting the escape button or clicking on Format Painter a third time. So I'm going to click once. You can see that what happens is I get a dash border around the cell that I'm copying the formats from, and my cursor changes to an open plus sign and a paintbrush. So then I can click, hold my mouse button down, drag, and release, and it will copy the formats from that one cell to these other three. Again, if I wanted to click to format or to copy the formats to multiple locations in the worksheet that aren't contiguous, that aren't in one range, I could just simply double click on the Format Painter and then click each place where I want it to be, click or drag, and when I'm done I would simply hit the escape button, or I would click Format Painter again to turn it off. Okay, so that's skill number 2, format cells with the Format Painter. Skill number 3 is talking about icon sets for conditional formatting. Now, we looked at conditional formatting in the past. We used data bars. So remember, with a data bar you highlight a range of cells that have numbers in them, and if you click on the data bar you will get a small little chart inside each cell that shows how the value in that cell compares to the largest cell, the largest value in the range of cells that you've highlighted. So that's a data bar. We looked at how you can use conditional formatting to show numbers that are greater than a value, less than a number, between a number. We've looked at how you can use the Format Painter, conditional formatting to look for a particular text in a range and highlight anything that has that text in it. So icon sets, and there's another one called color scales, which is basically the same thing, do roughly the same thing as a data bar. What they will do is they will flag a cell based on how the value in that cell compares to the other values in the range. So what we're going to do is select the range C5 to C17, And what we want to do is we want to have some sort of an indicator to say which are the largest numbers and which are the smaller numbers. To do that, we're going to go now. Just a quick comment on the quick analysis lens. The quick analysis lens will allow you to do conditional formatting. However, it is a little bit limited in the fact that it only gives you one option. So you don't have the option to pick which icon set that you want to use, or so on. So I'm simply going to ignore the quick analysis lens. Plus, if you have a Mac, it doesn't exist anyway. And I'm going to go up to the Home tab and click on conditional formatting. And in that list, I have all of the different icons, all of the different conditional formatting that I can choose. I'm going to click on icon sets, which displays all of them. So there's directional, shapes, indicators, and ratings. We're going to select this one called indicators, 3 symbols circled. Now, if I click on that, you can see now that what it has done is it said, and again, it's not really a great representative range of cells because there's only 2 types of values in there, 1000 or 500. But you can see that all the 1000, because that's the largest number, have a green circle with a checkbox in it. And the 500, which is a smaller number, has a red circle with an X in it. All right. So let's just take a quick look at Now that's the default conditional format. I'm going to go up here to conditional formatting again. I'm going to now to go down to manage rules. And by the way, just as a point of fact here, when you're working within My IT Lab and within Excel, of course, you can have multiple conditional formats on a cell or a range of cells. The problem with My IT Lab is that if you go in and create your conditional format and mess it up, and then you go in a second time and build the correct conditional format, the original one will still be there. So what you need to do is, if you've screwed up your conditional format, highlight the range of cells that contain the conditional format and go to Clear Rules, and then click on Clear Rules from the selected cells. That will get rid of your original incorrect conditional format before you put the new one on. Now we're going to go down here to Manage Rules. That's going to display the rules, so I can see that this current range of cells has one conditional format on it. I'm going to click on Edit Rule to display the Edit Rule formatting dialog box. So here you can see that I have the top just talks about how the type of conditional format that we're talking about here, format all cells based on their value. And in the bottom half of the section, you can see that it's using icon sets, the type of icon set that it's using, and it also tells you exactly how it's deciding which icon is going to appear on which individual cell. So in this particular case, you can see the green checkbox when the value is greater than or equal to the top 67 percentile of the numbers. So any number that's 67% or higher than the largest number is going to show with the green one. Anything that is between 33% and 66% is going to show in yellow, and anything that's below 33% is going to show in red. Now notice as well that up on the top you've got an option called Reverse Icon Order. What that is for is, by default, icon sets are based on big numbers are better than small numbers. But there are circumstances where you want that reversed. If you were talking about absenteeism as an example, you would want big numbers are bad, small numbers are good, and you would want to reverse the icon so that the small numbers are going to be identified with the green checkbox and the large numbers are going to be identified with the red cross. Okay. You also have the ability in here to, by default, icon sets are going to use a percentage, so it's going to take a look at a cell and it's going to say how does this cell compare as to the percentage of the largest cell within the range. You could change that to a number if you want. So if I click here on 60, where it says 67, I click the drop down, I could change it from 67% to a particular number. So I could say if the number is greater than 60, I want it to be green. If it's between another set of ranges, I want it to be yellow, and then below the last range is going to be in red. You would use that when you don't want to have percentages, if you're doing something that's a static number. The example I would use would be if you're looking at performance reviews and your performance reviews are between 1 and 5. You don't want it to be using a percentage. You want it to use a number. So you want to say if it's 4 or higher, it's going to be red. If it's between 2 and 4, it's going to be yellow, and if it's underneath 2, it's going to be red. So you have that ability within conditional formatting to customize your conditional format. Okay, so I'm going to click OK on this. So I didn't make any changes, but all right, and then I would click again. Okay. All right, so the second half of skill number 3 is we're going to select this range here, so N5 to N9. And what we're going to use is we're going to use a different icon set called 5 rules. So I'm going to click on conditional formatting, and rather than use the default, I'm going to click here on new rule, which allows me to build it from scratch. So as I'm building this rule, you can see I still want to use format all cells based on their value. Actually, no, we're going to go with that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down and change it to an icon set. I'm going to select 5 ratings. And then you can see how it's determined which ones are going to be used. Now in this case it says 80% greater than or equal to 80% is going to have 4 bars, greater than equal to between 60 and 80 is going to be 3, 2, 1, and so on. I'm going to change those based on what the textbook said, so I'm going to change 80 to 75. Whoops. Oh, sorry, got my keypad set up differently. And I'm going to change 60 to 50. I'm going to change 3rd to 25, change the 4th to 10, and I'm going to click OK. Now, one of the things that I do want you to recognize here is when I want to now take that same conditional format and copy it over to these two. I can't use the fill handle, because if I use the fill handle, it's going to copy the format and the numbers, actually the cell references. So that's no good. What I can do to copy the conditional format is I can simply use Format Painter. So I'm going to click on Format Painter, and I'm going to highlight the other 2 ranges to copy that conditional format across. Okay, so that's basically skill number 3. Skill number 4 is called Insert Formulas into Conditional Formatting Rules. I'm going to click here on this cell N10. I'm going to go, so there's already a conditional format on here, so I'm going to click on Manage Rules, and I'm going to first, while we're here, let's take a look. So in the cell you can see that it says the formula is N10 less than 1200, and it wants it to be formatted in green, and it applies to the range N10 to P10. Okay, so that's important. So I'm going to click on Edit Rule, but you can see in the rule it's saying using a formula to determine the cells to edit, or which cells to format, and the formula is only identifying the very first cell in the range. So even though the range of the conditional formatting is based on the range N to P, it's actually, you only are going to make the change to the very first formula, because then Excel behind the scenes is going to basically use the fill handle to copy the formula across, or sorry, it's going to use Format Painter to copy that formula to the whole range. Okay, so I'm going to change this from N10 greater than 1200 to be N10 is less than 50,000, and I'm going to change the color to orange. I'm going to click OK. So now what happens here is we've said that if the value in N10 is less than 50,000, I want it to display in orange. If it's greater than or equal to 50,000, it's going to just display in black. I'm going to click OK, and again notice that I still have it applies to the range of N to P. So when I click OK, you can see that this cell is greater than 50,000, so it has no formatting. This cell is less than 50,000, so it comes up in orange, and this cell is greater than 50,000, so it stays in black. Okay, so that's just a little bit on conditional formatting, and we're going to spend more time on conditional formatting as we move through the course. Skill number 5, insert and delete rows and columns. This is just kind of basic stuff, but we'll just go through it anyway. If I take a look at column A, you can see that the column width, but if I take a look at cell A5, it contains the text Yarborough Winery, but because column B is blank, there's nothing in B5, it will automatically allow the cell, the contents of A5 to display over top of the contents in B. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go up to the border between A and B. I'm going to double click to auto fit that column width so that now my text fits within the column. So I no longer need column B, so I'm going to delete it. To delete a column, I'm simply going to right click on the column heading and click delete. I believe I also have the option to go to the format and say, let's see here, hide. No, I can't do it from here. I bet you I can do it from here. Delete, so I could delete sheet column. So I can delete column B. Okay, so I could have done it either way. I'm going to add a new row above row 3. So to do that, I can either right click on the column heading 3 and click insert, or I can click in column 3, go to insert sheet row, and it'll add a new sheet row. And remember, when you're adding or deleting columns or adding or deleting rows, what Excel has to do is Excel cannot have a vacuum. If I delete a column, it can't, I have to have that column complete. So if I delete column B, then what used to be in column C will move into column B, and so on. And every formula in the spreadsheet will recalculate to identify the new cell range. Same thing, if I move a row, if I insert a new row, what used to be in that row has to move down to make room for the new row, and any formula in the spreadsheet that used to refer to the cell value before is going to change to match its new location in the spreadsheet. Okay, so select G14 to 019, so I'm going to select G14 to 019. What they want us to do here, we're basically just showing you the delete and insert commands. So delete command is here in the home tab. If I click on the delete command, you can see I have delete cells, delete rows, delete columns, or delete the whole worksheet. If I delete cells, again, because Excel cannot stand a vacuum, so basically what I'm going to do here is I'm going to delete these cells, and Excel is going to say, well, all right, what am I going to do with the contents that were below that cell? I can either shift them up, shift them down, and so on. So by default, it's going to show them shifting up, which makes sense. I'm going to click OK. One of the things to recognize, so I'm going to undo that for a second. If I go back to this cell here, you can see I have a formula of E20 plus 011. So my total vendor fees plus my total ticket sales is in this particular cell. If I do a copy and a paste to move that value, relative addressing is going to come into play, and it's going to change that formula based on the starting and ending position. So if I move it up 5 rows, it's going to change all my row indicators by 5, which of course we don't want to have happen here. If I do a cut and a paste, or if I select the range and click the border to move it, then it will not change the formula. Relative addressing does not come into play when you are doing a cut and play, a move as opposed to a copy. So I've got two choices here. I could delete these cells, or I could have simply highlighted the heading, grabbed it, and moved it up. Either way is going to work just fine. Understand if there was text or if there was numbers or whatever in that cell that I deleted, they would be gone. So you've got to be careful when you're doing it that way. Okay. They want us to select C4 to D20. So C4 to D20. That can't be right. Oh, insert shell. Okay. And we're going to insert and shift to the right. So basically this is going to add 2 blank rows or 2 blank columns. I'm going to select and delete column C. So again, I can click in the cell, I can go to delete sheet column, or I could have right clicked on the border or on the cell value and clicked delete. Either one will delete. Then it wants me to select C and G because these are both empty. So remember, if I want to select two ranges that don't touch each other, I select the first range, then I hold the control key down and select the second range. Just keep in mind, do not touch the control key until you've selected that first range. And it wants me to change the column width to 3. So I can either grab the border and drag it to 3, or I can click on column width. Of course, you can't do this on a Mac. On a Mac, you can only do it by dragging the border. Change the column width to 3. So what they are actually doing here is that they are using that column to add definition in your spreadsheet, to add a blank space in the spreadsheet just to make your numbers stand out from each other. And that's a very common process within Excel, people adding blank columns or blank rows just to move things around and make them look better when you present. Okay. Now, step number 7 within skill 5 is talking about changing the row height for everything in the spreadsheet to 16.5. My perspective will be that we're going to do it because that's what it's telling you, and there is some learning to be made here. But just understand that in Excel, when you column widths are set. So if you put information into a column that's too wide for the column, it will simply either overwrite, truncate, or if it's numbers, it will throw up hash marks if the column's not wide enough. You have to manually adjust your column widths. But within Excel, row heights are automatically adjusted based on the contents of the cell. So just to show you, I'm going to click up here on A1, and on the Home tab, I'm going to insert the font size. And you can see as I insert the font size, it's automatically adjusting the row height of that row to match the text. So let me just delete what I just did here. Now what they want you to do here is change the row height within the whole spreadsheet to 16.5. To select the whole spreadsheet, you click on the intersection of the rows and the columns, the top left-hand corner, which selects everything in the spreadsheet. Now I can go to Format Row Height, and I can change it to 16.5. And again, on a Mac, I couldn't do this. I would have to drag the border between one of the cells to make it until it reaches 16.5. Now you can see that everything is now changed. It's slightly bigger. The downside to changing a row height is watch what happens now when I change the column or the font size. The column height, once you manually adjust the column height, that becomes the set column height. You cannot, it doesn't automatically adjust when you enter information that's too big for the cell. So my perspective would be, do not do automatic row heights unless you need to. I mean, you can do it, but it's not, I would say it's not recommended. Okay, so that's skill number 5. We're moving on to skill number 6, modify cell backgrounds and borders. So they want you to select A4 to A5 and H4 to I5. So A4 to A5, and then I have to hold the control key down, H4 to I5. And I'm going to set the fill color to white background 1 darker 25%. So fill color is on the Home tab, and it's the little paintbrush or paint can. Notice that mine, I don't know what yours would have on your, but on mine I have a yellow bar underneath the paint can. That means that's the default paint color. If I simply click the paint can, then it will change it to yellow. If I want a different color, then I have to click the arrow beside the paint can, select the color that I want, darker 25%, and it will, not only does it do the format, but it also changes the default. Now the default color for the format painter is that gray color I just created. So now I can use that color on A19 to F20. And H11 to P11. And H14 to P14. And I'm going to just widen that column because the heading is okay. And I'm going to select A4 to P5. So all my headings. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put a border around the outside of those cells. I can do it from the home group. I can click on borders and I could pick the border that I want. Now all of these are going to use a default color. If I go down to the bottom, I can actually change the line color and the line style, or I can go to more borders, which is going to bring up the dialog box. I also have the option doing a Control 1 to bring up the dialog box. Whoops, Control 1 to bring up the dialog box and go on border. Now, when you're changing the borders, it's important that you do it in a particular order. So I'm going to pick the line style first, so I want the double line. Then I'm going to pick the color. And once I pick the line style and the color, then I can determine where I want the borders. So I could say outline, which is going to put it all around the selected text, which is what I want to do here. Inside is going to put the border between every single cell. And then you have the options for the left, the top, the right, and the bottom. So I'm going to click on outline and I'm going to click OK. And you can see that I now have that double border in blue around that heading. Now I'm going to show it a different way. I'm going to put a single blue line around these headings here, these headings, and these headings. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to more borders. So I'm going to click on borders and I'm going to go down here to line color and I'm going to pick my dark blue. My cursor changes to a pen, then I can simply drag to create that border. When I'm done, I simply hit the escape button to turn that off. And you can see that I now have that blue border around all of those cells. And then I'm going to select A1 to P20. And I'm going to go into my borders and I'm going to select thick outside border. And that simply is going to put a large border around my whole spreadsheet. All right. Skill number 7 is all about custom cell styles. So let's go in, click on your heading, and then click on cell styles. So what cell styles are pre-built formats that are given a heading, so a title. So I've got normal, you can see at the top, good, bad, and neutral, which is red, green, and yellow, data, and model. The headings don't really mean anything. I mean, you can use these formats whatever they want, but they're just saying, normally you would say my normal values are in black, my bad numbers are in red, good is in green, so on and so forth. So all of those are simply combinations of font color, and fill color. I've got titles and headings, so I'm going to select title for the heading here. I'm also going to select the second one, and I'm going to go in here and select title as well. Notice again, because we changed the column widths, the row heights, that the contents are a little bit bigger than the contents of the cell, or the height of the cell. I'm going to go to the border between 1 and 2 and auto fit that, and I'll do the same for number 2. Right, so auto fit doesn't just work for changing column widths. You can also use auto fit by clicking between the 1 and the 2, or the 2 and the 3, whatever, to auto fit your row heights as well. Now, there's still a problem with this heading. If I take a look at the heading, you can see that it's been merged and centered, but it only went across as far as column N. I actually should be all the way over here to column P. To fix that, I'm going to select the range where I want the merge and center to be. I'm going to click merge and center once, which will turn it off, and click it a second time, which will rebuild it to the correct size. And again, I'm going to do the same thing here, select the proper range, click merge and center twice, and my headings are properly aligned. All right. So now we're going to create our own cell style. So let's just talk a little bit about branding and what have you. Most corporations and companies have spent a fair amount of money maintaining a particular brand to the world. So Procter & Gamble, I used to work for Labatt's, so Labatt's, my wife worked for the Heart and Stroke Foundation. They all had a certain color scheme that was particular to their brand. They also had a particular set of fonts that were particular to their brand. And they probably had logos and what have you that were particular as well. When I was working for Labatt's in Edmonton, we changed our corporate logo from Good Things Brewing to the world's local brewer. And we probably spent millions of dollars once we did that, because the colors changed, the fonts changed, and of course the logo changed. So your business cards had to change, all your letterhead, your paper, your signage at the breweries, all your promotional materials, packaging on brand, and so on. A huge endeavor to change a particular a logo or what have you for a corporation. Why do they do it? That's part of the marketing thing that says the old logo was starting to get tired, people were starting to turn it off, and you wanted to reinvigorate the brand. You changed the name, or you changed the logos and what have you. So they spend a huge amount of money to have a particular look and feel for the company. The last thing they want you to do is to create information that's going to go out to the public that has the old logo, the old colors, or whatever the case may be. So for that reason, what they will do is they will create custom themes that you can use for any PowerPoint presentations and Excel and Word documents and whatever that you use that have the proper colors, and they'll have certain styles and that the text has to meet. So what we are going to do now is we're going to create our own cell style. So again, just refresh. Cell styles are up here in the styles on the home tab. You can see you have all of these different styles. We're going to create a custom one. To do that, we're going to click on New Cell Style. When we do, it's going to ask for a name, so we're going to call it Wine Style. And then it's going to show the default for whatever cell I happen to be on. That's the formats that were applied to that cell. We're going to create our own, so we're going to click on Format. This is going to bring up the Format Cells dialog box. We can change any item within that within that grouping. So we're going to go first to number. So this basically is how numbers will be displayed. One of the options that you have in here is text. And it's important that you understand what this means is that a number that's identified as a number with one of the number formats above will be treated as a number. So in other words, it'll be right justified in the cell so that it lines up on the right margin. It will maybe have dollar signs, maybe have commas, and so on and so forth, and you can use it in math. So formulas, you can add numbers together. If, on the other hand, you treat numbers as text, which is what we're going to do, then any number that you enter will be treated as text. You can't use it in math, it will not be left right justified, and so on. So that's what the text format does. Under alignment is how is this text going to display in the cell. So you've got horizontal and vertical. So remember there are 6 levels of adjustments: left, center, right, top, middle, bottom. So center or horizontal, we're going to change that to left with an indent, and we're going to add an indent of 1. And then under font, we're going to choose the font that we want. So we're going to choose Arial, and we're going to set the size to 11, and we're going to change the color to automatic. And we're going to click OK, and we're going to click OK. So at this point, all we have done is created the font. We have not actually used that particular style. So if I click here, now I have this new style called Wine Style, which has all of the formats that we have just chosen. So I'm going to select A6 to A18, and I'm going to apply the Wine Style. I'm going to select D6 to E11, and I'm going to again apply the Wine Style to that, and H6 to I10. Okay, so now that I've got that wine style, one of the values of using a style, and why you should use styles in Word as well, in PowerPoint as well as in Excel, is that it makes text consistent. So if I've got headings, I want all my headings to look the same. If I've got subheadings, I want them all to look the same, and so on. Another value of using cell styles is that if I change the style, any cell that is identified with that style will change to match. So what we're going to do is we're going to go up to our styles again, and I'm going to right click on the style, and I'm going to click on Modify. When I click on my format, all the formats that I had chosen will be showing here, and what I can do is I can actually make changes to them. So we're going to actually add a fill color as well. So I'm going to click on fill, and I'm going to select this one here. So that'll put a fill color, and I'm going to click on border, and I don't want this border down the left side, so I'm going to turn that off. And I'm going to click OK, and I will click OK again. And you can see that now that style has changed so that those cells, so all the cells that I had identified with the wine style now have changed to match the new cell style. Okay, I'm simply going to click on column A to widen it a little bit to make it fit, and there we go. Okay, so that's skill number 7. Skill number 8 is customize, save, and apply themes. So remember what themes are. Themes are a combination of color, fonts, and special effects that you apply to a whole worksheet. They're common across Word, Excel, and PowerPoint, so that if you pick a particular theme, you will have the same color schemes if you were to take your document or your an item and move it from Excel to PowerPoint or from Word to Excel or whatever the case may be. Okay. Themes are on the Page Layout tab. And if I click on my themes and just take a look at the fill color on that text, as I move to the different themes, you can see that each theme is changing. The color, the background colors are changing, and so on as you work your way through that. I'm going to select the Ion theme. Okay. I also have the ability to change my color schemes, so I could pick a different color scheme that I like, or I can create my own. I have also the option of changing my font sets. So my fonts are based on 2, so you can see here that this particular one has Century Gothic for headings and Palatino Linotype for body, and so on and so forth. So there's festival themes. So these are ones that I've created before as I was working through all of this before. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to create our own customized font. So we're going to go down to Customize, and I'm going to give it a name. I'm going to call it Cam. And you can see that by default it's got Century Gothic for headings and it's got Century Gothic for body. I'm going to change the body font to, let's pick something dramatic, so this Castellar. And I click OK, and you can see that all of my text that has been formulated is going to change to that new body font, which really looks god-awful, so I'm going to turn it, get rid of it again. Okay. Be aware that if you have a Mac, you do not have the ability to customize fonts or colors. Don't worry about it for your grader assignment. If it tells you to do it, just ignore it. It will not cost you marks as you're working through your grader in My IT Lab. Also in skill number 8, they're showing you how to change your margins. So remember, margins are the white space around the outside of your documents. So there are some preset margins. We're going to go down here to customize margins. I want to change these from 0.7 to 0.25. I can't use the arrows because they won't go to a 0.25. I have to actually type it in. All right. And I also have the ability to automatically have Excel, when it prints this spreadsheet, to center it on the page. If you don't click these two boxes, center horizontally and center vertically, if you don't select those, it will simply put it in the top left-hand corner of the document. So center it horizontally and vertically, we'll move it to the middle. If I click on Print Preview, you can see that it is now kind of in the center of the worksheet. Okay. Skill number 9 is talking about adding watermarks and modify background colors. Watermarks are an image that appears behind your spreadsheet. Now there is an option on page layout called background, and that will put a background to your whole spreadsheet, but we're not going to use it for this particular circumstance because it will take the picture that we're going to be using, that festival logo, is a big image. So basically what I'll end up with is just green behind everything. Why you would use watermarks would be things like if you want the word draft to appear behind your documents, so that if it does find its way out to the public, draft can't be deleted. It's going to be part of that so that people will know that this is not a final document. It could say confidential, not for distribution, or you could put a company logo of some sort behind it. We're going to use it in this case for kind of a decorative picture of grapes behind our printed document. So to add a watermark, we're going to actually use headers and footers. We're going to click on Insert, Headers and Footers, which is going to put us into Page Layout View. Now, to add a watermark, all you have to do is simply click on one of the headers, and we're going to use the center one, and click on Picture. And then I'm going to go and find that picture of the wine logo or the festival logo which you downloaded at the start. So wherever you happen to put it, mine is going to be on a USB stick. So I just have to find the picture here. Okay, so what that is going to do is it's going to add a picture. And when I click off of it, you can see that the picture of the grapes show up behind my spreadsheet. Right? That's basically what a watermark does. You can also put the picture into your footers, but the problem with you putting your picture into your footers is that it puts the picture in front of the data, so all you'll see is the picture. You won't see the text behind it. So that's not what we want to have happen here. So we're not going to do that. Okay. Okay, and oh yeah, the other thing they want us to do, so I'm going to go back to the normal view. So when you're back in normal view, your headers and footers don't display, so I don't see the picture. What I want to do here is I'm going to change the formatting on my two headings here. This is to show you that not only can you pick custom colors, so if I look at colors here, you've got my theme colors at the top, my standard colors at the bottom, but I also have an option called More Colors. The trouble with it being is that sometimes when somebody identifies a particular color for you, they will identify it in what is called RGB, red, green, blue. And it'll simply be a number for R, a number for green, and a number for blue. To do that, you have to actually go to, let me just get out of that again, select the cell, go to Font Color, go to More Colors, and then go to Standard or Custom. So go to Custom, and there you can see RGB. So you can see that this particular color is right here. So it's kind of a dark blue based on the 30, 30, and what have you. We're going to actually change that color. So we're going to use the numbers 226 for red and 222 for green. And we're going to use 204 for blue, which is going to give you this gray color. All right, I'm going to click OK. That becomes the new standard color. I'll do the same thing on this cell. Okay, and excuse me, that's good enough. Skill number 10 is just simply about hiding grid lines, columns, and row headings. So what we're going to do is we're going to, again, if I was to take a look at this spreadsheet as it was to print right now, you can see here that I can, it's hard to see that, but there are lines in there that are showing. I'm going to go back. I actually want to see, I'm going to turn off my grid lines. So click on the View tab and turn the tick box where it says grid lines, turn that off. So your grid lines that show you your differentiation between your cells is going to disappear. Now I'm going to add my own grid lines in a white so that they stand out better against the picture. So I'm going to select A6 to F18. Okay, and H6, so I hold the control key down, H6 to P15. Okay, bring up the Borders dialog box, so go to Home, Borders, whoops, undo that, I just put a box border around it, Borders, okay, and so I'm going to bring up the border dialog box here. Okay, so I want single line, I want color to be white, background 15% here, and then I'm going to click inside. So that will give me that kind of a gray border on just the cells that I have highlighted. It's going to leave the borders off of the rest of the cells. Okay, then I'm going to click on View, and I'm going to turn off the headings. I don't want the A, B, C, and whatever to display. And now when I go to Print Preview, you can see that what I get is a very pretty sort of a thing. There's my headings, there's the new cell borders that I installed, and so on. Okay, all right, so that's it for today, and that's it. Talk to you later. Bye.